Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Awake in the World. It is the 18th of October already in the year 2021. 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time if you happen to be on this planet and care about such things. Living fearlessly, fearlessly dying. Right here on the Awake in the World group page with the tiger. And, yeah. So I need some new slippers. I received a phone call from the surgery prep nurse department, I guess. And, they told me that the surgery will be 2.5 hours long, and that I definitely need to bring a copy of the Roman ritual, some holy water, and a couple of old Catholic priests. And one old or one young is so, but it's got to be one really old one whose heart is in big trouble to boot. So we'll see how that goes. But the one thing I need to do, which I don't own, is to go pick up a pair of baggy drawstring sweatpants. I'm either in my skin tight exercise pants or I'm in my combats, and there's really nothing in between there for me. So and of course I'm gonna have troubles with mobility, so they want me to have a pair of slip-on slippers, and there's no way I'm bringing these slippers to the hospital because they'd probably walk themselves home. So anyways, I'm on the hunt for new slippers, and I'm really disappointed in the selection of adult tiger slippers. There's just not a lot of options with that. And yeah, I'm gonna have to go to the bin, our local secondhand store, and try and find some sweatpants or something to make that transition back home. And it turns out I will be in the hospital for a couple of days, so lots of time for mayhem. Assuming I get through the surgery at all. I'm really not putting anything on any of this. This could be the time I choose to check out. And if so, to be honest, it's a very peaceful, relaxing way to go. Here's a needle in the arm. Bye-bye. But on to what we're talking about tonight. And it does play into it. And it's not like I have a sense of doom or anything. Boy, do I ever love that word. Doom. There's just something, some words perfectly sound like and represent exactly what they are. So, for example, bird. That does nothing for me. When I see a beautiful bird, that's not indicative of the creature that's there. But doom, it has that sort of finality to it, and there's the right in the middle. But and yeah, okay, Garen, get back on track, bring yourself back into center, focus. So listen, I love each and every one of you, and you are loved by all creation, and you are perfect just the way you are. Understand that perfection is not an end state. There is nothing in all creation, including creation, that is perfect. It all is, that is in a state of like static perfection. It's perfect evolving. It's perfectly evolving in its perfection. Just as you are, just as every moment you're exactly the person you need to be, but you got to be willing to feel it. You have to be willing to live fearlessly. And when you live fearlessly, that sets you up to die fearlessly. Now, there's a lot of talk about fear, of course, and a lot of people say, courage is not the absence of fear. It's the ability to be in a state of fear and to still walk through it. And sure, we can use that, but I don't like to dramatize it anymore. My dramatization sticks with doom. The idea is that, we end up solidifying fear as if it's really something there. And it's not. It's just us in disguise, and that's hard for people to accept. And we're going to talk about this a little bit, okay? So one of the things that we need to cover off right away, though, is one of the major fears, or one of the major deals that people have in living their lives. And I actually wrote it down because it was that important that I needed to. That the fear of what others think of me. Now, you will hear me say, and I'll say it again, that I don't give a rat's, you know what, tail, what others think about me. Now, what that really means is that I understand that no matter who I am, no matter what I do, other people are going to think about or on me based on their own perceptions, their own point of view. Why? Because the thinking part of it is coming from their egoic sense of self. So, for example, I don't even know how to make an example because I personally can't conceptualize it, and I don't remember a time in my life when I did do that sort of thing, but I certainly understand it. I do understand the idea. And when we don't open ourselves to the realization that it is only our perception we're seeing when we're dealing with someone else, what happens is we really lose that person. And this has happened to me numerous times, where I'll be in a place and there'll be 50 people clamoring to come and have a conversation with Garen and talk to him face to face. And this is not an egoic deal at all, but there'll be 2 or 3 of them who are angry with Garen and believe he's driving people towards hell or damnation or whatever the case may be. And I have no control over that. And you don't have control in your life over what other people happen to think of you. So if we run around all the time afraid of things that we're not in control of, so for example, then I need to be afraid of pretty much everything, don't I? And when we really sit and think about it for a minute, it begins to sound just a little bit ridiculous. Wait a minute. I'm going to be afraid of things that I can do nothing to control, like another person, or the weather, or whether a cockroach eyeballs me from the kitchen table. And no, we don't have any cockroaches around here, and we certainly don't even have a kitchen table. We'd like to stand at our island. What I'm really talking about here is that the idea that we need to fear that which we can't control would literally freeze us to the spot all the time, because there's nothing outside of ourselves that is in our control. But in our fear of, trying to control what others think about us so that they view us the way we want them to, what do? We try to control them. We try to do whatever we can to guide their opinion of us. Right? We call those people people pleasers. They'll say anything as long as someone is happy with them. And I would ask you, how real, how much import could you put on a person's advice when they're that sort of person, when you know that they're just looking to appease you? so that you think well of them. Do you see the game that it becomes? It becomes a never-ending cycle of you trying to discern what you think they think of you as they're trying to discern what they think you think of you, and then you're trying to act out to them based on what you think they're thinking is going to make them happy in your mind. And I'm already ready to blow a gasket. Confused and lost. That's part of the whole thing about fear. There's nobody, there's no thing, there's nothing outside of ourselves that is responsible for fear. Now, I'm not talking about the reaction to a giant man-eating giraffe jumping out on a trail next to you and trying to swallow you whole. You know, I mean, I'm not talking about that sort of fear, the fear that tells you to run. I'm talking about the fears that you generate in your mind. And those are the worst kind of fears. Those are the fears that keep us from being authentic with ourselves. And here's the deal. You die either way. You're all doomed. I am too. Oh, I love it. You're doomed if you do, and you're doomed if you don't. Damn it. What this really means is if you act out of your fears, you're going to receive your fears anyways. You're going to get the end result of your fears is going to manifest. Why? Because that's what you're so focused on. That's the one thing about fear when it comes to the ego, is when ego is in a fearful state, that is a very powerful emotion, a feeling to ego. A very powerful feeling. It generates a whole bunch of energy and a whole bunch of attention on the fear. There's no better way to manifest something than to think upon it, to then speak your fears out, and then to act upon your fears. Well, guess what you get in the end? Your fears manifest. And a lot of people use that as a reason to be afraid. Well, I'm afraid because last time that I was afraid, it actually happened. And I'm thinking, well, good for you. So it's going to happen again, and maybe you're going to get it the third time. Nope. Maybe the 200th. I don't know what it was for me. I lost count. Took a long time. So when we really, really look closely at fear, we see that as real as it may appear, then in actuality it's nothing. It is a product of our own perceptions and our own mind. Now we know that we can't control the way someone else is going to think about us. And any attempt that we make to try to influence them is really trying to create a puppet that's going to think about you in the way that you have trained them to. And when we surround ourselves with people who've been trained, excuse me, who've been trained into viewing us a certain way, sooner or later, mix-up occurs. Why? Because we can't keep track of how many different us's there are in order to meet all our fears we have with different people. So in order to cease to care anymore what someone else is going to think of you, you only need to realize that you have no control over it. And that to try to exercise any sort of control over it will only make a puppet on a string out of them, and it's a very precarious, thin string, easy to break. So that kind of handles that fear, and that fear seems to be a huge one, especially for a lot of people. It's the fear that seems to manifest as you're waking up. One of the things about human beings is that we are social creatures from a physical and psychological common sense point of view. We are social creatures, but at the same time we are not. So we are social creatures to meet all different sorts of needs, most of them physical, safety, ease of gathering food. I mean, it's a lot easier to go to a supermarket than it is to go out and find an animal to shoot. All of these things come into play, obviously, on the social side of things. But at the same time, everything in our perception is, in our point of view, singular. There's no one else in your head. There's no one else that sees or feels the fear that you're generating through your thoughts in the way that you do. There's no one, and there's no one who can be party to it. And in that arena, we are all alone. Or so we think. But egoically, that's what the ego likes to think, actually, is well, no one knows what I go through. It's like, thank God, no one's in your head to find out what you're feeding yourself every day with those thoughts. So here's the deal. When it comes to fear, we need to learn to recognize fear for what it is. We need to see that fear is wrapped around the idea that somehow you're not enough. And believe it or not, ego actually wants to kind of keep it that way. Because when you're feeling not quite enough, that's a fantastic cloak that allows ego to pretty much do whatever it wants with a built-in fail safety. Well, you're not really enough. And the truth of your existence is far different from that. So in your day-to-day life, you're going to face situations and I'm not speaking like I haven't faced them. I've faced them myself, where the words that would come out of my mouth, I knew were dooming a long-term friendship I had with someone. But I was going to do it anyways, because to not do it would not, I would have had to been dishonest. I would have had to cater to what they wanted to hear. I would have had to support them in doing something that was damaging them, and I knew it. So instead, I tanked a long-term friendship in a matter of a couple of sentences, a couple of very driven, hard-biting, laser-eyed, doom-filled sentences. Now, it may not be that way for you. A lot of times it's the fear of, being straight with your family about what you truly believe. Now, the one thing that fear does, and keep in mind, we own all of this because we generate fear, is fear will, over time, make you smaller and smaller and smaller in your perception of yourself. And that's because fear feeds upon itself. Fear leads to more fear. It's natural. Love leads to more love. Hate leads to more hate. Violence to more violence. Joy to more joy. Snuggles with a kitten to more snuggles with a kitten until it claws your eyeballs out for scratching its tummy 1 second too long. So how do we play this all into our lives? Well, it's all about recognizing the fear and being okay with the outcome, even if it comes true, because that's the biggest weapon that fear holds over ego, is the idea that it may come true. But when you're willing to say, so what? When you're willing to look at fear in the eye and say, yeah, and so what if it comes true? So what if you're right? I'm not going to believe in you, even if you are right this time. Even if you're right the next 10 times, I'm not going to believe in you. I'm going to walk through you like you don't exist. Because it doesn't. And you have to walk through fear many, many, many times before the last green gooey vapors of its existence finally fade away and never come back. But as long as you're not, as long as you're believing that fear can have any true effect on your being or stop anything, the moment you understand that, fear doesn't own you anymore. You own it. As a matter of fact, you can recognize that a lot of the times when you're the most deeply afraid, that's also the biggest opportunity in your life to move forward. And I've seen this in people that I've counseled and had to look them straight in the eye and ask them why they were still where they're at. And to see them walk through the fear and the blossoming of the being that's always been there, made little and smaller and smaller and smaller by those fears. It's just a joyous thing to see that reflowering of the powerful being that person is and that you are, that we all are. You know, living fearlessly certainly doesn't mean that things aren't going to happen that you don't like. It's not about that. It's about having a little bit of real faith. And honestly, there's not a lot of people on this planet who possess true faith. And I find myself very blessed to have come to the place in my life where I do have true faith. And yeah, I admit, I'm a stubborn SOB. It took dying and a lot of pain and a lot of suffering to get me to that place. But the good news is you don't have to go through that. You just truly, truly have to understand in your deepest heart that there is a creative presence in this universe that not only has manifested you, but loves you as an eternal part of itself that can never be lost and never be harmed. Living the full brightness of your existence, you know, fear is like the cloak, the shutter on the light. And you have free will, so that creator won't grab that cloak and rip it off you. Instead, that creator will hand you your fears over and over again until you realize you're the light hidden under the cloak of your own fears. You're the light that guides the way. And in that, you can understand that you have already been dying fearlessly all along. Even though we sense and feel this wonderful sense of, you know, sense and feel a wonderful sense, good language, this continuity in the feeling of me as an egoic being from youth through adult into old age and one day death, that me has not stayed the same for any length of time at all. Because each new experience, each new sensory input, each new object worship that we partake in as human beings changes everything about us. Literally changes our consciousness at an egoic level on the spot. We recognize the big changes when we are caught in a moment where a grand building, like the first time you walk into the Sistine Chapel, and the magnificence, the grandness of it, it changes your consciousness in that moment in a lot of ways. There's a lot of things that come up based on that. But that is happening to us in every moment of every day. You've already been dying over and over and over again. You died to the idea that Santa Claus came and dropped that. You know, I remember when that happened to me. I remember the day when I accidentally heard my parents, I don't know why they were talking about it at night. They must have been having an argument or something like that, but I overheard. And that stocking on the bed lost a little bit of its magic. And I had to die to that. And then I had to restore that magic by my own choice to re-perceive things again. So in truth, we've all been dying over and over and over again. You know, we have relationships that die. Friendships we swore would last forever when we were young, and we never think of the person again. Or we rarely do, or we don't connect. No matter what it is, you've experienced death over and over and over again. Why? Because death and life are really just up and down on what life is. If you look at that circle, that yin and yang, and have death on one side and life on the other, and then you need to just swirl it all together like a big milkshake. Because there really is no separation. It's literally like just turning over the world, and now you're on the other side, and then you're going to turn it back, and then you're going to be on the other side somewhere else, and then you're going to turn it over again. So allow yourself to have that faith, allow yourself to have that understanding that not only are you eternal, but that you are the product of a loving creator in a loving universe where there is simply nothing that happens that is not perfectly woven into the tapestry of existence. That's it. I don't want to keep you long tonight. A quick update on how things are going. It's going to be an interesting time. I'm probably going to attempt to leave my body during the surgery. I haven't quite settled on that yet. I'm not sure. I'm going to talk to the doctor tomorrow, tomorrow when I see him, the surgeon. He wants to see me. And we'll see. Maybe I'll be conscious and just watch it on a TV screen. I'm going to find out. Much love to each of you. Remember that fear can be your friend. Fear can be a reminder that there's something grander on the other side. And all you got to do is just walk right through it. Just kind of give it that yeah, whatever, and walk right through. Namaste, all my love. Have a beautiful night. We'll talk again very soon.